So when I'm saying a simple procedure, when I do video, it's simple. I have After Effects. One of these days, I might learn how to use it. I knew how to use After Effects 1, and I knew how to use After Effects 2, and I don't know what it's up to 14 or something now. And whenever I go in there, I'm totally confused. So everything I do, I'm doing in Premiere. I'd like to move to a program called DaVinci simply because it's free. I'm having some issues around audio syncing with DaVinci, so I'm going to be looking at that. For those of you who are in a corporate setting, both Premiere and DaVinci will allow you to do collaborative work, but DaVinci you then pay for if you're doing the collaborative version of it. They call it the Pro version. But it's from Blackmagic Design, who sell all kinds of hardware, so they're giving you the software free. Anyway, that's all that to say, it's a simple procedure. As you can see, the videos are shot on a DSLR. This was last year's setup. I had a camera close on the one side of the room and a wide shot on the other side of the room. It really depends on the setup of the room. And to have a close-up on this and a wide shot, I basically, both cameras are on the same side this year. And of course, one's high up. Last year it was on a table. We've got them on some wine crates, wine glass crates this time. And the idea is the wide shot will get the whole screen. The headshot, in this case, it's not a headshot. It's medium close up, but it will give me the ability to switch back and forth. For any of you who've seen the videos, you know. The other thing we have is we have the capture that captures the screen image, so I can go directly to that. Over here, yes, it's on. I have a digital audio recorder that gets the premium quality sound that I can get out of the sound system. The cameras also have wireless on them so that I can sync all the sound and video together. Once the speaker's done, I remove the SD card or CF card from the camera, copy that onto a hard drive, back it up onto a hard drive, and that's where that's how I take it home, and then I'll format that card and use it for the next speaker or the speaker after that. So I copy them all onto the drive like that. When I get home, all the useless files are culled. There are always files of, Adam talking to Connie, talking to me, talking to somebody on there because I've had the camera turned on. That stuff gets thrown out. There are test, there are test clips and things like that. Some of the capture files are basically not usable for various reasons. And I take that, I back it all up to a network server, and I've got a bare drive. So the drive that's over here, what I call the BCA drive, well, you guys did pay for it. That travels back and forth. When I get home, it'll all be uploaded onto my NAS drive, and then and it will also be then put on a separate bare drive. So I actually have 3 different versions of this for the year. As I'm completing the Premiere files, I'll upload those onto the network drive, so I've got that backed up as well. And I have an editing drive that stuff sits on for a while, but it obviously fills up. So this is my configuration. As my wife will tell you, it's a messy office. Many of you will understand that. I have a Samsung 24-inch 720p monitor. I looked at consumer monitors that people use for color management, and this one seems to be the best simply because for those of you who've done video color correction, it'll do a blue screen video color correction. But you can see the difference in color on this to the computer color, which is also, that's calibrated with the i1 calibrator. and I've got audio interface. The monitor is hooked up through a Blackmagic device, so that actually is a video, not a computer image. I keep track of the time on sheets like this. I print one out, put the name on it, and start scribbling things. Sometimes I actually fill it out properly. Sometimes it's just, like that. Once I've cleaned up all the extraneous files and that, then I start looking at the audio files. And I take the audio files because often the audio file will be the full morning or the full session, so there'll be 2 or 3 speakers. So I'll take them, I'll cut them up into the individual speakers. I will, if there's any buzzes, hums, or whatever, I'll try and eliminate the drill noise that happened yesterday for those of you who are here listening to that. If there's any, occasionally you'll get strange room noises that happen. I can't eliminate all of them, but I'll normally try. And it's a lot of audio, so sometimes I'll just miss it anyway. But it gets cut up, it gets cleaned up, and then that's what ends up there as Ken Meets WAV file. And the reason that's there is because that's who I'm going to be showing you what I did with my own presentation from last year. There's a bunch of files in here right now that, because I've set up this demo, it's a little bit further along than I would normally get. But I would import the video files from the 2 cameras, the close-up camera and the wide-angle camera. And at that point, these files wouldn't be here because I wouldn't have yet set up a sequence. So I'm going to show you where I do for that. So I'll take.
Sorry, did you say what program
this is in Premiere. Yeah. So I'll drag the file. There we go. Okay. So I drag the first video file into the sequence. I'm using the assembly right now, not the editing, because it's just easy to put massive numbers of files into sequences this way. It will give it a default name that's the same as the file. So you can see that's become big. What I do is I change it to wide or close-up so that I'm actually aware of what's going on. But for now, we'll leave it at that. And then I drag the audio file in, select the both of them, and synchronize them using the audio setting at the bottom here. Now, it's really nice. If you've got an older version of Premiere, you may need to use something like Pluralize to do this. But it normally takes a fair amount of time to do this. I've actually used I've downsampled the file sizes to run it on my MacBook Air because we'd be here all day waiting for that. But that now is synchronized, and if you look, if I make that bigger, you'll see that the video, there's nothing there. We've got audio coming through. So if I start playing this presentation, the more I realize just how complicated a history the subject has. I'll be bouncing back and forth between art and science and treating them. Now, I'll leave that. Usually I go in and I mark where in the audio file where this where that happened. And the reason for that is if it moves, I don't have to resynchronize it. I can just go back. And then I'll take the second file, copy it in there, and then synchronize it again. And now you'll notice sometimes when you're doing this, if you're using DSLRs, there's a period that the camera will run 11 minutes or 29 minutes and so many seconds. And then there's a gap. You'll see the gap on the. You'll see the gap here. So now I've got to watch for those when I'm actually editing to make sure that the screen doesn't go black. I can show you how to do that. So once I've done this, then and I've changed the name, to wide. So I'll close this one now, and you can see. Come on. So at the beginning of the file, I've put in color bars, but I haven't put in any tone. That's just so I know that's the beginning of the file. The reason I just didn't cut to the cut right to the beginning of the image is because I've got this other file, and this one's further along, but it's the close-up stuff. And the idea is that we're actually starting at the beginning of the audio file. So when I put them together into the multi-camera, it's the beginning of the audio file. The other thing I do is I take the screen grab, and so you'll see that. And this one's actually got the audio on it. Normally it wouldn't have the audio. I would sync it up with the widescreen image, and then I take that. So when I've got all of that, when I've got this synced, I've got the color bars in it, I've got the audio's good, I export media for each of the three sequences that I've made. When I go into export media, it will allow me to make various choices, but usually what I do is I select at the top, match the sequence, and that's going to give me an MPEG file that I can take that's pretty native to Premiere and very quick and easy to use. So when I've got the file in this position, sorry, I did jump ahead there a little bit. I'll take this file here, and you can see the screen. I've got a better light this year, and I seem to be getting better imaging. But you can see that this image is fairly bright, and actually I'm not looking too bad in this one, but I would be dark. So I would go over into color, and I select. I make changes to the color settings on the first file. And you can, well, I've already made these changes. I've got a color correction. If I go over into the effect controls, you will see there are two different lumetric colors. If I turn off this one, you'll see the change I made. But you notice that the screen itself is not changing. And on this one, you can see the screen's changing. And I actually have masks built on both of these. And it's the mask is the same size, but on the one mask, it will be inverted. So this other one would be inverted, so that it's the outside that's corrected, and the other one, the inside's corrected. It's a cool little system. The other thing I do is on the mask, you can, or on the image, you can, squeeze them, and sometimes what I do, depending on the quality of the image, is I will then take where I've taken the screen grab, run it over top, and in here, effect controls. Don't want that one, I want this one. And there we go, motion. So I'll scale that down. And because it's a much better quality image, I'll just overlay it right on the screen. So I might do either depending on the quality of the capture we got. Once I've got this set up, now you notice on the screen, let me just pop this up a little bit bigger. So you notice on the screen here that this is square. Well, it doesn't actually fit. So if I go into Effects and I select that and I do a thing called Pin, or I type in Pin, and I get down here corner pin. Okay. Okay, and I can actually move the corners of these things around, and so I can get the proper perspective on the. I'm not gonna do that for you right now because it is a time-consuming thing. But you just go in and you can correct this perspective to the perspective of the screen that the camera was seeing it on. Okay, so once I've done that, and I've got those files sent out and brought back in as MPEGs, I'm going to go back to assembly for a minute. We've got now this whole series of files. So I named the files Camera 1 and Camera 2 and Screen Grab so that I actually had just an easier way of controlling that. So what I'm going to do is Camera 1, Camera 2, and Screen Grab. I'm going to create a multi-camera source sequence. And it will do an audio sync if I want, but I've already done the audio sync and I've got all the audio starting in the same place. So if I just go to endpoint, it's a lot faster, it's a lot easier, and I know it's going to be accurate. And it makes that file. It also dumps those other files into a folder called processed clips. So I don't need to worry about those anymore. The wide and the close-up I don't need to worry about. The only thing I really need to think about now is this one, and now it's called Screen Grab Move Multicam. Doesn't really matter what it's called. I can name it whatever I want. And then I make a new sequence from that. So this sequence, as you can see, it's not showing all those. It's just showing one green bar. But if I go here, display mode, there it is. Okay. So I show multi-camera, and I've got my multi-camera here. Now, if you remember when I was showing you the my desk, I don't get this image on the computer. I get this image over on the TV. So I get these three quite large, and so when I now start. So we can start on this one because that was the beginning of the presentation. And I just press the space bar to start.
Okay.
And
All set? Okay, before I start, I have to say that the more I research this presentation,
so if I
the more I realize just how complicated
click
a
on,
history
and I just realized
the subject has.
I've done this.
I'll be bouncing back and forth between
When I was setting this
art
up,
and
I've done this
science
with the
and
wrong
treating
video,
them
but
much the same because
yeah.
when we're
But you've
discussing
got the
art
three,
and science
three
as
images there.
When
And
related to
I can just
faith, a lot
choose
of the same
the different
issues
ones.
kept coming up.
And now if I stop this and go back and play it for you, you'll see it'll start at the beginning again.
All set? Okay, before I start, I have to say that the more I research this presentation, the more I realize just how complicated a history the
And you can
subject
see
has.
how it's
I'll be
automatically.
bouncing
So I
back
can
and forth
choose
between
I can choose the image. I can press 1, 2, 3, and it will pick it if I do that on the camera, or I can click on the image, either one, and then I go. If I've messed up on where I'm making the cut, I go in here to the rolling edit tool, which is an N. I'm going to use and I can go in here and I can actually move that edit back and forth that way. much like you can do on a regular edit, but with the multi-camera, you know, you've got the different different files. I'm just going to go into the. Now, if you've got anything messed up in that first multi-camera file that I made, you'll see I can go back in and look and change the different files. Sometimes what will happen is, you know, something has happened in there, and I have to drop a still capture clip in, so I can go in, cut it, drop it into that spot, and it'll fix it. So there's various things like that. Once I've got this whole piece edited, I'll close that one again. So this piece, once it's all edited one end to the other, comes the most difficult part of the whole process. And that's watching it again. Because I'm going to sit and I'm going to watch the whole thing front to back and figure out what needs to be, because right now nothing has been edited out. It's just the whole presentation. So when, as I often do, I stumble over words, I do stupid things, and believe me, everybody that was done any presentations over the last 2 years has done the same thing. You want to get rid of those. When the computer goes on the fritz, when, you know, whatever happens, that stuff gets cut out. A lot of people do a lot of ums and ahs that can last 3 or 4 or 5 seconds. And I know I can do that. So that kind of stuff gets cut out. And you'll see, you know, the occasional blurry thing. If something's way too long, I'll try to figure out if there's something that is just totally not part of it, and squeeze it in. The final thing I do in this, after I've made out the final presentation, is I go into YouTube. So I go into Creator Studio. So many of you have been on the channel. This is the way I see it when I go in. It's a little bit different. So I upload that file. I'm going to now edit that. And the things that I do is, what I didn't tell you is I put credits and stuff on, you know. But I go in at the end, stop that, and I put a series of things. I put endnotes on, which take you to the newest video. It also takes you to the association website, depending on where we are in here. You know, so about the BCA and the logo. And if I click on those things, this is the most recent upload. So right now it's Rick Hatmakers, because that was the most recent one I've done. We could also make that a specific video if we wanted to as well. I can set up playlists, so anything from BioCommm 2016 and 2017 are in separate playlists. People can look at. And so we upload it to the site, put the endnotes on it, put all that information on there, so that when people go to it, they get funneled back to the BCA. That, very quickly, is how I do one of these presentations. If you have any questions?